It's called a friends exercise. Ask them the simple question, why are we friends? And they're going to look at you like you're insane. And they'll start describing you. I don't know, you're always there for me, I trust you, you're good to me, and you play devil's advocate. That's just the definition of a friend. What specifically is it about me that I know you'd be there for me no matter what? And they'll go through this a few times. They're going to hate you. It's going to hurt sometimes. Don't help them. Don't let anybody help them. And eventually they will give up. And they will start describing themselves. And I got goosebumps. In fact, I'm getting them right now. What they will do is they will put into words the value you have in their life, and you will have an emotional response. You will either well up with tears or you will get goosebumps. And that's how you know you found your why.
What are the challenges to trust? Because let's think, like in the past, ways in which trust was given ahead of time, was like by people having a commitment to shared propositions, right? We all go together and we all say the Apostles' Creed or the Nicene Creed, and that means like your public declaration of these things engendered my trust in you before I knew you. It helped get it forgave. And I mean, I'm playing on the word forgive here, but to give ahead of time, right? It forgave trust. Now the thing is, we're entering into a space where it's massively pluralistic, and where commitments to sets of propositions that we're going to hold to in an unquestioning fashion, that's not part of how this space is working at all, right? So the question
Thank you. Thank you, Anthony. Can you hear me now, as if you can still remember those commercials? Let me turn this off now.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2. So if you were catching the first part of that stream, I was showing a video clip from Charlie's Little Corner. His videos entitled "Trust Affords Reciprocal Transformation in Personal Relationships." It's 20 minutes, and I think it's Paul went and commented on it. Paul did a first, and it's really good. And some of my recent conversations I've had, I was talking about trust with people, and I think that is, well, the foundation of what's going on in the kind of community that we find ourselves in. And I think that Charlie's video does a really good job encapsulating that, different conversations with different people, with Paul and with Vervaeke and with his friends, Voss and others in Europe. And it is a strange thing to develop this trust with people around kind of shared language, a milieu, a spiritual around spirituality, around Christianity, around other religions, and I know it's really beautiful, and it's something that, as I watch, I don't know if Chad's still here. He was in the comments, but we are seeing as Chad's gone out to other communities on the internet, like what are we trying to extend? Like what are these flotillas of meaning other than groups of people that are loosely bound by a certain trust in something, each other. And why is that? So, I don't know if anyone wants to come in and play, but I want to invite anybody in that's hanging out there that would like to talk about what they are experiencing related to trust in this community that we have been hanging out in. This may not work for everyone time wise, but I thought I would try it out. So, anyways, we're going to see what happens. Trust in a civilized society. Tony. Yes. And trust seems to be at an all-time low. Trusting your neighbors, like how is it that we feel like we can trust people on these screens in a certain way more than we can trust our own neighbors that we embody space with? And I'd be interested to know why people think that, or why feel that. I know I feel that way. I felt like Daniel didn't in the chat. Oh, I see. That's what that was. Yeah, and if you watch Charlie's Little Corner, his video ends with Daniel Dennett talking to Jordan Peterson about that, which was interesting, and that is, I don't know. There's all sorts of issues with trust. Like, how is it that we feel like we can trust each other? Why do I feel like I can trust Paul? Why do I feel like I can trust people who are telling me stories about life change that are they directly attribute part of that work to someone like Jordan Peterson or John Vervaeke? Here we go. Tony, we're going to spoil it, dude. Oh no! What happened? We lost him. Tony's ready to play. Thought he was. Maybe not. We had him for just a second. Oh, he's back. And we're back.
Hey, sorry, I closed the wrong tab.
Dude, what's up, man?
Yeah, I was just thinking about, I had some time tonight, so I was like, I wonder if anyone's going to be streaming.
Yeah, I'm in my hotel tonight, as I find myself in occasionally, and I thought I'm going to try this out because this idea of trust has been on my mind. Do you have any thoughts on that, Anthony?
I don't know, I guess what comes to mind initially is, I'm echoing a little bit, I'm not sure if that's streaming. Your headphones did work when you had them on. Maybe that helps. What initially I was thinking about was just the idea you can't trust anyone, right? Don't trust anyone, or trust but verify, that kind of negative stance towards people that sometimes is necessary in this world, right? I don't know if I've operated like, I think I'm more of a trusting person, so I maybe to a fault. I think I could probably be accused as being a bit of a pushover at times because I tend to trust people and I kind of let them make decisions, and I go along with what people are sort of talking about because I trust their intentions a lot of times, so I don't push myself. But I think that's related to trust. So those are the two things that kind of came to mind. It's like, okay, the typical attitude of trust is a dangerous thing, but also Yeah, I don't know. There's a
Trust is
personality-based thing too.
trust is a dangerous thing. Hmm. Because you can be manipulative.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, well, it, it can surely be a dangerous thing. I think, depending who you're trusting.
Sure. You, I mean, you
The audio is clicking a bit. I'm not sure if it's me or you.
like I'm not great. My earpods.
Is it?
Is it what's click? Something's clicking.
Now it's gone.
Let me see something.
Where's my audio settings? Well, can you hear me okay right now?
Yeah, I can hear you okay.
We'll start here. Oh, here they are. Audio. Go cancellation. Okay. Maybe this will work better. Yeah, so do you feel like you have like trusting relationships like in your embodied life?
Yeah, I think so. I think I can, like, I'm married, so I feel like I can trust my wife
Yeah.
even more than I can trust myself, 100%. Um, so that's what comes to mind immediately. And maybe someday I'll be disappointed because, right, human beings, she's human. But yeah, I really do feel like, and I think I've always had a big trust of my parents and family. Um, so yeah, but so it's more family based for me, I guess, than friendships.
And like here's William's comment. In actual fact, multi-generational domicide, you can't trust your own family, but is that performative? Maybe the emphasis should be, am I a trustworthy person? I think that's great, William. And I think that is a great question about family trust. Um, and I mean, what's strange, Tony, is spoiler alert, me and Tony are supposed to have a podcast coming up next week. So we'll try to
I will
work
not
around
share anything.
it. But I think that is one of the interesting things, just the fact that we're on here right now related to this, because you and I both hopped on with some videos like maybe the same day, actually, onto YouTube.
Hmm.
And like I kept bugging you, and I don't know if you knew what to think about me, but I was commenting on your stuff early on, and I think it is strange to like, what is it? There is a interesting process of trust building, like on this medium, even.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I think that's interesting, and um, we scheduled an actual conversation, but just that there's even like a trust with yourself. Like, am I gonna like inputting yourself onto this medium and into comments and into like a live stream? Like it's like it's almost like you're trusting yourself. You're trusting other people. There's levels of it to even get to this point. Um, I don't know. How do you feel about that, Tony?
Yeah. Um, wow, I don't know. It's so so s- so YouTube is a weird social media. I don't really know how to use it. Like I don't know how to use any social media actually. Um, but it's almost like I don't. Yeah, I guess what you think of the dangers. So say like I guess trust has to do with something. Well, it'd be interesting to define trust and like what is that in a relationship? Um, it's almost like the idea that you can be confident in someone will have your back in the negative, something negative happens, or but it can also be the idea of like your trust. You can't use trust in the definition of trust, right? Your the other person will act with integrity on your behalf or
Mm.
something like that, right? Like um, and I guess it's probably a bad idea to trust. You probably have to be careful to trust anyone via social media because well, PVK talks about like YouTube is a place for people that don't have much to lose,
Hmm.
and that could be a maybe that could be a tricky situation. Maybe not because you're gonna be like you're not gonna be attacked or right like you might not lose a lot if someone else goes after you in social media, but um it could just be like not profitable, right? It could be people can start engaging with your content in a negative way and that can actually be a negative thing in your life. Or you really like, do I really know PVK? Do I really know Luke Thompson? Do I really know you? Like I don't live with you guys. Like it's not in the same town. I don't know your families. Like like so there's very in I guess in a traditional way, there's actually we should be kind of guarded on YouTube and social media.
I think the thing that people are putting their trust in, or at least from in my own in these conversations, is almost like a shared language and a shared history, though, with like Peterson or Paul or Jonathan. Like it's like a shared history. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, they lack a physical. Let's see. These
Yeah.
relationships lack of physicality makes each of us way easier to live with. That's interesting. There's truth to that, and I wonder what implicit rules people are following in a way like that we don't. Some of them we don't even know that we're doing, but we in some ways maybe though to protect a not even just like our own selves, but like something else that we maybe value, um, and that the if that is violated, it seems to be felt or seen or something. I mean, your other point though is, yeah, I mean, what does it mean if you do have things to lose to get on here? Like, I mean, I mean, it was making me think like, um, and I do approach this with certain level of certain kind of boundaries, I think. But the other part of it that you were mentioning was, you don't know me or my family, and so like I actually did my like this first kind of like on the eclipse. I live streamed the eclipse, and like I had a bunch of my family around, and that question of like people that turn their channels and their things into like their life,
Mm.
like, and so well I see this, I see this person and I see their life or something, but does that actually mean that you can trust them or know them better, even though you could see all these characters? But the person that's doing that would need to be careful not to turn their life into a TV show and that kind of thing. And so I don't. But that's what that was making me think of when you said, I don't know your family," and like you kind of peek a little bit behind the veil, of something like that, and so yeah, man.
Hmm.
I just think that our society is very, in most places, some places more than others. I was having this conversation. So my dad he lives in the house that his grandfather built. My great grandfather helped his dad build, and his one of his best friends from childhood. I happened to be there one day a couple of years ago. His best friend from childhood came and sat down on the front porch, and they grew up in this town of like 300 people. And his friend is telling my dad this struggle that he's going through with his own kids, something pretty serious. And I was talking to my brother about that just the other day, and I was like, man, there's like, I bet in some ways they trust each other more than a lot of people trust themselves, or maybe even their spouses in some ways, because of that childhood friendship that still exists today, that's built on almost their whole entire life. And with the mobility of our society, like that kind of stuff doesn't exist very much in a lot of the ways that we experience and the ways that we're fed what is a good life from, the general media. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just think of, um, well, so, I grew up, I didn't grow up in the US, I grew up in Brazil, and, like, in the city there, and, and I think, I mean, like a lot of towns in the US, I mean, it's a city, but it was settled, by immigrants, so, like, there's a lot of just knowledge of who was who on the street, so people moved in and kind of they stay there for a long time, right? So you knew your neighbors. So my parents knew who lived on the street, right? Like, so there's a certain amount of like, so in that context, I think people were pretty trusting, like, right? Like, if we're not home, we would have a sign on the door saying, deliver our packages to this, to this house or a corner
Mhm.
store or whatever, right? Like, it's like, well, I mean, it's pretty trusting that people are gonna like, they know who you are. They're gonna receive your packages. That's a small example, right? Like, a little trust. But even like house sitting, things like that. But then in that same context, there was a very much like a very strong, um, you can't trust strangers. So if you don't know them, don't open the door. Can't open the door. Like if you look through the peephole, and that's everyone. I mean, even for adults, like you don't open the door, not just for the kids, right? And I moved to the States, I I felt that even like so small town, upstate New York, like there was a lot more trust of even strangers to some extent, even how you receive them. Um, so that was like an interesting, just thinking about it, that in those experiences in terms of trust. So I don't know how we've changed, but I think, yeah, mobility, has a lot of has affected that for sure, because everyone's a stranger. Like you are a stranger to a town. I mean, most of us in our generation, like we're strangers to our towns, perhaps.
Yeah, and there's
Um,
my gosh, I can't remember his name. He's kind of a pop artist, and he's got this song called "You Can't Make Old Friends." You can't just make an old friend. That's something that's only achieved through time,
mhm.
long time. And you can. The other thing you were saying though is kind of was pointing on that Daniel Dennett point. And if anyone else wants to jump in here and talk about trust, I would want to try to do the more people on stream. I don't know if this time works for people or whatever. Probably not, for whatever reason it works for me and Tony. Like the uh, the thing you were saying does kind of point to the Daniel Dennett point that was made at the end of that, is like he was
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about how if you put a bunch of chimps in a room, they don't trust each other, but there's like a natural human trust or something. But you were saying there's degrees of that because you felt that more in the States than you did overseas. And do you think that's from because you were a foreigner, or do you think that was because that was the general sense?
I think just people. I don't know. I mean, it could be so complicated. I mean, in terms of people's trust with their possessions, like Americans seem much more trusting of like, I mean, so in the winter you leave your car running in the parking lot and went into the grocery store, right? And it's like, if this would happen in Brazil, someone would steal that car in like no time. I mean, so there's a trust in the abstract sort of like ordering of society. I guess maybe that's what I'm talking about. Not necessarily like trust in individual relationships. Maybe that's something different. Um, but I guess that's the civilizational point.
Yeah.
But I think the civilizational point is built on individual trust, right? And common identities, right? Um, um, yeah, like common identities and okay, I know where this, I know where these people go to church, or like I know their families. My uncle worked with that person's cousin, right? Like the connections that existed, I think facilitated a lot of trust. Like a lot of the work of trust building was done through the network that existed. Um,
Mills, hey everybody. Growing up in the urban setting, there was very much sense that trusting strangers is kind of a sin and you deserve to be preyed on if you don't have a stance of veiled aggression.
yeah.
I would wonder, I'm trying to think of my own experience. Like, I went to school, like a county school in a town of 350 people, and the school was like 350 people. And I would wonder if there's almost the opposite sentiment is like, if your word isn't this old idea of your word meaning something, like, I mean, I think there is higher levels of trust in that kind of community because it costs more. The breaking
Mhm.
of the trust cost more. I've used this example of like in the town that I grew up adjacent to is 10,000 people, and then for another hour and a half, there's no other towns in any direction, no other cities, and what I think is unique in that space is like there's only so many mechanics, there's only so many doctors, and they all go to the same Walmart, right?
Mm.
And if they mess you up or like your as opposed to in a large city, you're just like another number. That the accountability that forces a level of trust maybe that doesn't scale. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's a scale issue or it's just a um, movement issue. If that makes sense.
What do you
Like if
mean
it was like if it was the same million people living in the same million person city, right? But cities, by definition, like cities have a lot of movements, and
mm,
right, it's not just like the new family here and there, but it's like constantly because like you have 120 families that live in a high-rise building, and it's like there's always people moving in and out, and there's always new people on the street begging for money, right? Like it's just the change of the strangers is like just everywhere. I remember like Mills brought like he just I think he's right. In urban setting, like even stopping to give someone like someone who's begging for money or something is just like, I don't know if you should really do that. Can you really trust that person's not gonna get? Maybe they're just doing that, but they're gonna actually end up like robbing you or something. Maybe they have a gun and they just need to get close, or a knife and they need to get close to you, right? Like even that was like, yeah, I think it's right. It's like it's a big sin to trust people in in that urban
mm.
environment. Maybe not everywhere. And
It's a
then there's
sin.
urban environments that they're urban environments, right?
It's a sin to trust people, like Mills was saying. So, like, I don't think like you'll get what's coming to you. You deserved that or something. I don't think I grew up that way,
Hmm.
but I think that And you were saying that you feel like you're a trusting person. I don't know. I think I'm becoming a more trusting person. But I don't know. I think like you even mentioned this earlier, but I think it's because I didn't think maybe I could trust myself. So yeah,
And
so
this
this
is where
is,
maybe Peterson, I don't know if the Peterson comes in.
what does he
But,
come in and say?
well, I don't know, but I think just his point of cleaning up your room, it's almost like you can apply the trust. It's like if you feel like you're doing the work, you're being responsible with what you have. Like you are, well, someone mentioned like you are becoming a trustworthy person, and that's the first step.
Yeah, it is. And this space being built around that, I think, is as a very foundational thing. I think is kind of interesting. Um, this was in general can trust people to act as they usually do from past interactions. Yeah, so like trust is um, maybe trust is easily can be easily given, but it's if broken, it is takes a long time to rebuild. And I know that's like old school stuff, but um, I don't know. Peterson, I just was wondering whenever Charlie posted that video, it got me thinking about why why is there a felt sense of trust even in what we're doing right now with people that have made a contribution, into this space that people are going to honor each other to a certain degree. I know there has been drama and people have gotten their feelings hurt and there's been disagreements and stuff, but I don't know. I think will catch replay.
Um, well, yeah, Paul mentioned you in the live stream this afternoon, for me at least, about kind of like connecting, doing the randos with you because you were someone who's been investing and helping other, like you've been helping in the corner, right? Like you've been, and I think that's a
Well, I say this. I don't know if Alan's still watching. He commented earlier, but he said, "Should Paul keep doing randos?" And he said, "Yes, for if the only reason because it's a good example." And I thought, well, I know that's true because it was an example. It's been an example. And Chad, they were like, that's been examples to me. And so I guess what does that mean? Can you trust this person's intentions by the way that they're operating? Are and people, probably have missteps and we all make human faux pas to a degree, but I think yeah, what does the body of the work represent, I guess? Um, proof of work.
right.
Uh, yeah. And that's another big thing is I feel like our society I listen to a lot of stuff on Bitcoin and a lot of our society is even in our financial institutions and everything, there's a lot of, the financial crisis, like trust, like our trust has just been eroded by so many things. Um, religious institutions, financial institutions, medical institutions, universities. I mean, the list goes on. Political structures, like And so if the thing that was holding all of them together has been like broken, then we really are having to rebuild trust in the West as a foundation, as a starting point, which I think maybe what kind of this TLC thing kind of is, because and whenever Paul makes the statement that this is where YouTube bottoms out, like, and I saw Chad on a one of those other flotilla things. I don't know if you've heard him talk about, and there was a lot of them he's bumped into. It seems like have gotten they're kind of still stuck a lot on the kind of political, trying to. They haven't bottomed out yet, maybe complete, like, and that's what it kind of feels like here.
What do you mean by bottoming out? What do you mean by that?
Well, like, come back to the foundation. Like, they're still trying to like hold on to these. Well, if my institution can beat your institution, type thing, or if we can just get this part of the institutions right, political, basically, but that I can't remember who was having that conversation recently, but it was Lance was making the point that his meaning crisis happened at the 2020 election. And I would say that in some ways, maybe like I officially bottomed out on politics, like right before I got in here. And I think I said that on a stream the other day, but William, I knew politics was broken in '95. You old badger. Well, have some grace for us young pups. Mr. Turner says, was it misplaced trust or unrealistic expectation in society's institutions? I mean, I tend to believe that the institutions were healthier. So maybe they did have a reason that we could trust them more at a certain time in history. But lots of things get corrupted, and I don't know if things have to reset or there's an ultimate endpoint or something. But
I don't know. It's hard to, and this is where someone with a better knowledge of history too, because
yeah,
like you hear stories of like the 60s, right? Vietnam War area, and you're like, oh my God, like there was a lot of division and mistrust back then. Um, maybe they were in different forms. So yeah, it's hard to know, and it's really cool. Like I don't know. Do you think that the trust or the lack of trust in institutions is really widespread the way that it appears? Because I feel like once you get into certain, maybe not this little corner, but certain corners of the internet, like it's the whole like amplification, right? Problem. It's like, but like, right, it's like almost like we're in this little YouTube world and we're like, Jordan Peterson, oh my God. And then you go to talk to like 10 people and 9 people have no idea what you're talking about. Right. Like, and it's like, okay, actually, most people are still listening to NPR on their commute to work. And most people are still going to go to like St. Joseph's Hospital for their medical procedure, even though it's like Catholic Church and right. Like, what does it mean? Like, is that trust really eroded or not? Like, is it really worse than other times in history? I mean, perhaps it is. I don't know.
yeah, Mills. I think that in the past there was a sense that you couldn't trust what politicians said, but in general, the government would act in our interest. I think that pillar's eroded. So were there some kind of guardrails that have been, religious guardrails that even though they these institutions were more secular, there was still a lot more hegemony in our culture. You just can't deny it. You know, all these cultures, all of Western civilization used to be more hegemonic. You know,
Yeah.
and I think that
Right.
that does create a certain type of trust, for better or for worse. You know, we all know the problems with that, but
Yeah.
whether that's a religious hegemony or racial, ethnic hegemonies, there's something to that. And let's see. Branch says Mills can testify. I thought things were going to return to normalcy after Nixon resigned. Oh, damn.
Still
I thought things
waiting.
were going to return to normalcy after COVID ended. It's like, and I think that, so to your point about trust in institutions, so I work at a hospital, worked at several hospitals. I was a nurse, ICU nurse all through COVID. And like, so probably about 6 months ago, I had a patient that I was admitting to the hospital, and so I had to ask him questions. And would you be willing to have a blood transfusion? Which that's generally a question for like Jehovah's Witnesses. That becomes more of an issue, you know.
Okay.
But this guy, like I could lay out a certain type of stereotype, but regardless, he said, how did he put it? Yeah, I'll do a blood transfusion as long as there's no COVID vaccines in those in that blood. And I was just kind of like, I can't, I don't know how to even answer that question. But here he was. He goes, "Oh, I'm just joking," and of course, he wasn't joking, because like he really did have that as an anxiety, because he kept going back and forth, you know, on certain things about that, which is fine. Like I respect the distrust.
Yeah.
I understand it. It's just, to your point though, he still was in the hospital because he needed help, regardless of all that stuff. And
Right.
at the end of the day, was this 40-something-year-old guy gonna want to have a blood transfusion if he was in the hospital and he was bleeding out in surgery? Yeah.
Right.
Like, you know, so I think when you said something about like how much does this really affect, like I think it affects us psychologically, and that's why I can't remember the word, but it's like apophenia. Like we can get like into these loops about the trust in conspiracy and all that kind of stuff, and then, but at the end of the day, we still have to like function,
Hmm.
and then it creates like a dissonance, and that was just a real example of that. And I mean, but I still think that, I don't know where does trust, maybe where, yeah, there it is, William. Thank you for my apophetic. Where does my, I don't know, the gap between skepticism and trust, or something like that, or skepticism and distrust, maybe.
Yeah. It's like, um, yeah, I don't know. I believe help my unbelief, but maybe that's the positive way of looking at it. Like I want to trust help my non-trust, but we live in the opposite world, perhaps.
Yeah.
I don't trust, help me trust. Well, yeah, I don't know. Like, is the guy there for his whatever? Is the guy at the hospital because like who's trusting in that situation? Like, and who is he trusting? I mean, it's so I guess it's in my mind it's so unclear. I mean, is he trusting you? Is he the one who's trusting, or is it like
You're talking about the guy needing blood, or possibly
the
needing blood?
yeah, possibly like, or is it just like something that is bigger than himself, like trusting trusting other people. I don't know, trusting the system or something. I don't know.
I just had a third party chat chime in and say skepticism, trust, and cynicism. Uh, Cynicism would be, I guess, where your skepticism moves into another, where I guess there is like the trust is kind of gone now that you're just completely cynical.
Yeah, cynicism, man, that's ugly.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of it though, and I think that people, when you mentioned like there's tons of people that don't know about Jordan Peterson, what he's done like 5 years ago, what he started 7 years ago. Um, that he actually was speaking to a lot of depressed cynics, or you know, and helped draw people away from cynical about religion. Like, yeah, that was the kind of the atheistic project, was a lot of cynicism. So that was always the thing that kind of like pushed me away from the new atheist stuff, was it because of how ad hominem I could. And some people like that stuff and they're drawn to that kind of like, but it really was distasteful to me. Um,
Hmm.
but that's what cynicism leads to, is just everything's a joke, everything is nothing serious.
Yeah. Do you think that's why comedians are so prevalent in our media?
Mm.
It's like what you just said, like everything's a joke. So to the cynic, that's sort of the end. Like, so the highest form of contemplation of the world is to like listen to a comedian and make fun of everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot to that. There's also a power in just being able to not take things seriously. Then you're not responsible for anything. And I think that's it. Because if everything's a joke, then nothing matters. Like, then nothing, then you're not responsible for taking something serious. You know,
Mm. Sorry, I just triggered Alan. She's still around.
you triggered him.
I don't know. I'm just saying.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because he's a comedian. I don't know if he's still. He popped a joke right when he hopped on the chat. You guys are in the same area, I guess, or at least the same state.
Same state, yeah. Different worlds altogether, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see.
Gary,
I
I
don't
love how this
know.
conversation's dancing around trying to talk about conspiracy theories without showing your cards. I can show some cards. Is that a challenge, Sherry?
I believe in the conspiracy that I was about to get like super Christian, that Jesus rose from the dead.
Oh, you believe in the divine conspiracy?
I believe in the divine conspiracy. That's my conspiracy.
Let me see if Sherry, not a challenge. Okay, I'll just tell a story. How about that? Because the conspiracy was mainly around COVID, and I brought it up. Let's see. I'll just tell I'll just tell. This doesn't have to be a conspiracy. This is just my experience. This is how people talk today. It's fascinating.
You mean dancing around, Jerry? Like dancing around the topic and not really like. Uh,
Well, I think I don't know. It's not dancing around because it's just like when I watched 3 years of Twitter just burn on conspiracy. It's kind of like I'm so fucking tired of that conversation. Like, I guess like, but and I think that's the churn, like that's that to me is the bottoming out. Um We
Hmm.
always just said what we thought growing up. Well, that was before everybody had a camera. No offense to your age, Sherry. Before we were all recording it and it could be used, speaking of trust, against us. So COVID, I became a nurse in 2019, January of 2019. And so I worked for a year before, a little over a year before COVID kind of hit. Probably had our first like patient like March, April of 2020 in Arkansas. And nobody knew what the hell was going on, and we were all like doing all sorts of crazy stuff at hospitals, and I was brand new. Like I had no idea what to do.
Hmm.
And so the long and short of it is my empirical experience is with COVID was this, and people they can say whatever they want. This was my empirical experience. 2020. We were trying. Everyone was trying all the same stuff, and it was really serious. And there was a lot of. It was intense as far as like the energy of not knowing what was coming down the pike. Even like most of that year. 2021 is when things got crazy because that's when it's kind of was all working. At least got into Arkansas and was doing its thing in Arkansas and other states, and so there weren't a lot of answers, and we were trying to trust in institutions, and I was one of the first. I got a vaccine in December of 2020. There had been less than 20. There had been about 24,000 people have a vaccine when I got mine.
Hmm.
Because the basic science of it made sense to me. Now, whether or not I knew what the hell Pfizer's doing with their drugs is another thing. The basic science of it made sense to me, but that's one thing. Then in middle of 2021, everybody that was dying that summer from Delta in my hospital was had not been vaccinated, or they were immune suppressed, like because they were taking the drug that I watched it happen like empirically. But then things changed after that, because then all this stuff about like being told that this is going to fix everything, and then 6 months later saying these only last for 6 months. So like I saw it work for 6 months on Delta. I in our hospital saw it work.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my experience with that. And then the trust was just completely eroded after that, and it doesn't even matter after that. What mattered to me were the experience of the people that I saw die from it. And I think this is important, and I'm glad you brought this up, Sherry, because this whole thing busted trust in our country, in the world, and in our country, just like huge. There were all these institutions, the woke university institutions, but then like there was the financial institutions before that. But then like COVID came in and busted up our trust in the healthcare enterprise, science enterprise, and even more in government. So I think it's a good, so regardless of all of that happened, I'll tell two stories now about people that I saw die. One was a 40-something-year-old lady, and they told her story on the local news. She'd gone to college where I went to college, and I was taking care of her. And I heard, well, I don't know if I should say this now that they showed the story on the news, but they her husband called to check on her, and I could hear little kids in the background, and she was not doing well. She was intubated, sedated, the whole 9 yards on like and they had just adopted a couple of kids that had been foster kids that she taught as an elementary school teacher. And we weren't letting people come in to that at that point. This was pretty early on. And he would sit outside her room on the street, and then we put a sign up in the window about that this is where this person was thereabouts, and he would sit out there and pray for her, but he could never come in. And she ended up passing away. And I was giving him reports, and then I would see him give those updates on Facebook like a few hours later of the reports that I was giving to him. So I don't know what that means about trust, but those are the things, like that's again like all these ideas that happen out here and all of our theories about what was going on, like, and even if we didn't do what was right or we were using the wrong science or whatever, like that stuff happened. And the second story is this was a guy that was having struggle breathing. He was on one of those things we call a BiPAP, and he's struggling. And then I'm on this team called the Rapid Response Team, where we were ICU nurses, and we would go to we'd get calls about things happening in the hospital. So I was on call that night, and I walk in his room, and he's trying to breathe real hard, and we're gonna have to intubate him. And he says, call my son. And so I called his son, and I put the phone up next to him, tells his son he loves him. And we try to intubate him, and he ends up coding. So I literally watched this guy say his last words to his son. Like, I watched that, and then we did the whole Grey's Anatomy scene after that. And, so those were the things. Like, that's what I wasn't shut down. I was going to work every day. My work didn't skip a beat. So it's like,
yeah.
And we were trusting the people we're working with, and you're trusting the doctors, because I mean, you're all kind of a family working there and that kind of stuff. So I think I still had my own reservations about what the government was doing. I still had my own. I don't like the idea of mandated any of that stuff, and so but I still was just going to go to work and take care of my family and try to help the people I was working with and try to take care of these people. So as far as conspiracy theories, I have them on like this level, but they like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. It's devastating to hear that. That I think the people dying alone to me is like, it just makes me mad, right? Just so because I so I have I actually have a grandmother who passed away during COVID, but it wasn't from COVID, but there was a little bit, so we were able to gather, but it was always very measured.
Yeah.
Can't have so many people in the room, right, in the calling hours and stuff. So that was pretty annoying. And then, but I just can't imagine like having her in a hospital just dying alone, or having my grandfather in the hospital dying alone. Like, I'm like, after that, how can you trust anyone? And it's not even just, it's not, in that case, it's almost like not even the medical establishment, whatever, right? Like that would generate, it's not even a conspiracy. I think it's literally like I don't trust these people know what they're doing. And there's too many factors for anyone to control. I mean, it's like, I think Peterson kind of goes on his to like get you like deplatformed from YouTube altogether, or you can talk about climate change. But like Peterson talks about like how a lot of these projections for climate change are the modeling is so complex that like there's a projection of the data that's almost like impossible to extrapolate. Like we're extrapolating
The
light years in
combinatorial
advance.
explosive
Yeah,
thing.
but it's like it's an impossible model to say that what's going to happen to the climate in 50 years kind of thing, right? Like, and I think it's just with COVID is that same situation. Is like you have people that have no idea what's going on, but what we do know is that there are people that care about money a lot, right? Like politicians care about money, pharmaceutical companies care about money, hospitals care about money. So like that is
Nurses
a
care
constant.
about money.
Nurses care about money and they don't want to be there 12 hours a day. Like like they don't love their jobs all the time. Like it's a job, right? Like they're not like Catholic nuns who are there for the love of it. So
Mm.
like, um, so yeah, so I guess I don't know. Like I feel like the conspiracy thing is like when I think of that, it's more like the systemic thing. And I think it's more like there's a lot of BS in the world and 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 to call it to know that is that to believe in conspiracy? I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of BS and unknowns and like people just doing the thing they don't really understand, like who really understand their job when they're doing it, and that goes all the way down and up, right, from presidents to the nurse.
Yep.
um that's my own, I guess that would be my own take. So like I was always very just skeptical through the whole process. It's interesting because I guess like Matthew uh or Matthew Pajot, it's on Twitter, sort of
Hmm.
he talks a lot about conspiracy. I really don't understand what he's talking about most of the time, but it's I'm not, yeah, I guess I'm not symbolically attuned as I
Yeah.
should be. Um, but
What try to unpack
I don't
something.
know. He's been talking like what I mean. I don't know. Maybe this is like unrelated. It's related to conspiracy, but not really related to trust necessarily. But he's been like posting about airplane contrails or whatever.
Yeah, I saw that
Um,
on
you
Thursday.
saw that? I have no idea, and I have zero like interest to like pursue that. But I'm like, what is he talking about? But it's related to, yeah, it's so tough to know.
No,
Like,
I'm glad I didn't.
yeah, well, yeah,
I'm glad I
I was
lived in the dirty South.
New York was not great either. I
Oh
remember
man.
when we moved, so we moved back, whatever, and around the pandemic. So like they had testing requirements of people kind of coming into the state. And I remember like sitting in line, and it was still like early in the pandemic, so like people weren't like super proficient at testing and stuff. We were sitting in this line for like 5 hours
Mm.
to kind
Just
of
for a
like
COVID test?
just for us, people to like stick a thing in your nose, and then you don't find out the result for like 3 weeks, right? Because it wasn't like the rapid test. And I'm like, what are we? I hate this state already. um,
Mm.
yeah, but so sort of related. So sorry, I don't want to spoil our conversation,
No, yeah.
but
Keep
I
it.
lived in, yeah, never mind.
I don't care.
But I think there's something to do with like American relationship with government too, that is different from other parts of the world. Like
Yeah.
I think we just have to remember that like we're kind of weird in the West in terms of like our relationship with governments, and like because if you live in Asia for an amount of time, you're like, yeah, this is they have a different relationship with their government here. Um, I don't know if it's a trust. It's like a trust, but not really. But you kind of do it because why bother doing something different or like going against government, like government things. But to some extent, that kind of makes it a little better because everyone's just following along.
Better.
I don't know if it's better, but it's
Efficient.
I don't know, the dissent is hidden, perhaps, and that makes it look peaceful.
Hmm. Yeah, I saw like a it was a Twitter something, like it was a long form like reel looking thing. This guy was talking about 10 ways that China's changed in the last 10 years or some 5 years since he was there, and it's like much more civilized.
Mm,
Um, you know, who knows? I think the
yeah.
thing too about COVID that created the, I can't say the word right again. I just look at Mill's apophthenia, is this thing that, I mean, it goes back to the combinatorial explosive idea that Twitter and social media and YouTube, that great line, just do your research. I don't like like that we all can be experts, that we
That's
all
ridiculous.
can, but that we almost are all expected to be.
Hmm.
Like, because we have the tools to give us access to the knowledge. So then when that happened with a pandemic, uh, we all had the tools to track the data, and Google could tell us how much X, Y, and Z, and so, but even all that kind of bottomed out, like, and we were just, yeah.
You can't. It's impossible. I remember I was like, okay, let's look at excess deaths, But then you go online, like for the layman, I mean, you're looking at data from 3 months ago. Like that's the most updated data that you can find, like, in the public internet. So it's like, okay, how can I make a decision on old data like this? So it's like that stuff is, I mean, it's impossible. And hopefully, like the experts had better data, right? But who knows? Probably not.
We're just so outpaced, would, I mean, when the last big pandemic happened, 100 years ago, was it less crazy induced like society because people just attributed it to God, or they just attributed it to, this is the way life is and we have to just like, but instead we feel like all of us like can try to control reality to such a great degree because, well, if I do what the experts say, I can put on my mask and I can clean this, then I can control reality. And then I can try to force other people to control reality with me or whatever. That we're so outpaced. Like
Mm,
our actual lives are outpaced by the data, the access. I mean, to William's point, uh, like when this was the speed, this is a more human speed. This digital speed that we're on is like, we're not made for it. I don't know.
right.
We are made for this. What you and me are doing, like we're made for that,
Yeah.
but we're not made for the the near infinite access to information, and that just shoots through my brain. Like, speaking of dancing around things, Sherry,
Yeah.
I'll go hardcore whenever I think about the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and I think about uh, the bite on the Apple logo, like, and here I am on my Mac laptop, just like with my knowledge of good and evil. Like I have all the knowledge that I've bitten that thing that makes me think this is real Peugeot. It's a symbolic understanding of that. I think I have the knowledge of all of right, of all things, and because of that, and so we think that So it is almost like 100 years ago, people were more in a state of like the garden, and in this kind of without all this knowledge. I don't know. Now I'm talking out my rear end.
I have no idea. I think it's hard to know how people really believed thought back then. I just think, like, what would have been like to be in Europe during the plague? Like, it would have been insane. Like, we can't imagine that. Like, there's just no way to imagine what that is like. And when people die, there's isolation, right? Like, if a parent is sick in the house, they wouldn't they would take the kids away, right? Like, they had that concept, right?
Part of me wonders. Because uh, previous cultures, previous times in civilization were much more acquainted with death. Whether that's like the loss of children,
Hmm.
people died earlier in life on average. And I feel like death gets pushed off. I was really thinking about this related to miscarriages recently. Like, we don't like. I would think that because miscarriages were so much more common and mortality of the mothers were so much more common, that there was more of a in whatever society that you were in or small community, like probably like these ways of processing and dealing and preparing these that related to death
Hmm.
in a way that if you have a miscarriage now and you live in a town like 6 hours from your mom, and it's you and your new husband in an apartment complex, and you're supposed to know how to like deal with that.
Hmm.
That is like that's a huge disconnect from like some kind of knowledge that was probably like, I don't know if commonplace, but like passed on. People in this little corner talk about the shadow matriarchy. Well, that's one of the things that I think about with it is miscarriages,
Hmm.
like the wisdom and the knowing how to deal with that appropriately and in a way that maybe is more healing to. And oh, I'm a guy, I shouldn't be talking about this, so, but I'm thinking like uh there's people I love and care about that have dealt with that. So um
Well, husbands are not. I don't know. I don't want to make a rule, but I think a husband is not equipped at all to deal with a miscarriage
yeah,
of
that's
his
my
wife.
point. That's my
Yeah,
point.
right. Compared to her mom, right, her aunt or whatever, right. I agree with you.
And that's just another piece of this, like what would have been like to live 100. Like, I think some of those things were, there was more, talk, oh, we have all this knowledge
Yeah.
uh about facts, supposed facts, but this, I mean, that would be like participatory knowledge that handed down. And our culture just, I mean, and almost, I mean, we can get all sorts of controversial on here now leading into that, but like in a culture that says, that thing doesn't matter unless you want it to matter. So then, like, well, then why should you have a ceremony or a knowledge in a way for dealing with this in a non-medical way, but in like a spiritual way or a humane way? So
Hmm.
what does this have to do with trust? I mean, I think they all have things to do with trust, but
No idea. Well, yeah, it's like, what is it? Gosh, like, this is playing God in some way, right? But like, it's the exchange fair. Is it okay that we exchanged that more mothers survive miscarriages now, let's say because of medical advances, but they've lost all the other. I don't know. Yeah, but they've lost to those who survive. They have no. They have no support is different.
Or a
Like
type of wisdom.
yeah, yes, perfect. Yes, the wisdom is lost. They have all the clinical support, but very little wisdom.
And I will
Um,
say that I think there are really caring, physicians and nurses in that field that deal with that,
yeah,
and they have ways of dealing with that I
right,
think probably are appropriate and good,
mhm,
but that isn't always how that happens.
right,
And
yeah,
and probably I don't know what the stats are, but a lot of those things happen at home,
yeah. Well,
and
most
so
often. Hmm.
yeah, dude,
Yeah.
for sure. Alan didn't want to come into this conversation.
Oh my gosh. Maybe it would have been lighter.
I had to do that myself. Where are you, Alan? Come play, because I don't know, man. I'm gonna throw this out one more time. I'm gonna give this thing another, 30 minutes, and
Sounds good.
we'll see. Somebody come
Yeah,
play. Come play with me and Tony, so that we don't just like self-destruct into
I know.
sadness. We're also
Oh
trying to
man.
save parts of our conversation for next week.
I know. Yeah, there's plenty to talk about. Life is fun and complicated. Yeah, I'm sitting in my attic, if you can tell.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've been trying to do some work on it. So I was like, I have been procrastinating to finish my attic, right? So it's like, you know what I need? I need to use it. I need to be up there. So like I bought a rug. There's like this old table thing. It's actually a door that they made into a
are
table.
you telling me that you're making a podcast studio? Is that what you're telling me?
Oh, no way. No way. I'm not making a podcast video, but maybe an office. How's that? What I did, like I was like, you know what? I need one of those background things. So I bought that on Amazon. It's coming in next week. Maybe we'll have it for our conversation. Then it will have a pretty background.
What is it? Just like a
I think it's just some like it just looks like a
dressing like a dressing change thing?
yeah. Have you seen those? Like yeah, the room divider things.
Yeah.
Some people use it for a background. I got a pretty one. Well, it looked pretty from the picture. We'll see.
McMo uses some kind of like confessional looking thing. Yeah, it's
It's
pretty
got
cool.
grates.
He does this
Picture of
thing.
a
I think he
priest.
does it on purpose, but he has this old looking background, but then he'll have like some kind of LED light that's constantly like cycling colors, so that it's not like there's this old thing, but then there's like the new thing, the new technology working. I don't know. He's doing something there.
Oh, creative people.
Yeah, those folks. I don't know, man. Somebody else come in and talk about trust with us, or anything really,
Yeah, if you trust us.
if you trust us. There's enough people watching.
I can't tell. Yeah, I the
This
controls.
this thing says, can you see how many people are watching? Does it show you? There's 30. It says it's telling me there's 35 people. So
Wow.
I'm like, somebody come in and play. I put the link in
Really?
the chat. Just click on it. If you've never done StreamYard, it's not hard. And you just click on that thing that I put in the chat, and click on
Can
the
you see
link.
their locations? Do you have any like Quantico locations?
What
Got
do you
some.
mean? What does that mean? I don't know what that means.
Isn't that where the CIA is located?
Dude. Oh, because I'm Agent Baxter? That's Grim Grizz. Grim Grizz was calling me Agent Baxter. He's like, how does this guy come in from nowhere? He knows the players. He's got all this fancy gear. I don't think I can trust him. I thought that was awesome.
Oh yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, man. Speaking of trust, yeah, I mean that was kind of. I do feel like I'm a weird guy, and I don't know because I wasn't a lurker.
Hmm.
Like I didn't know any of the subculture around Paul Vanderklay. I didn't understand any. I had to like figure all that out really quick,
Mhm.
and I didn't understand what was happening whenever I posted my first video. I just was like, "Who are these people?" Uh,
Really?
but yeah,
Oh
that's why
man.
that
Okay.
I've
Maybe.
had to build trust because of that. Because I wasn't somebody people saw commenting, and the day before, I would be curious to know this. The day before I launched my video, Chris posted Waves of Obsession. Posted this like he had like I want to know if he had my name on one of his like database things.
Hmm.
Because he had. Did you see his thing where he had like all the
Yeah, he did that cool graphic, like a neural network.
yeah? And I thought I didn't. Well, I didn't at the time, but I thought later. I was like, I don't think he would have my name on there. And like, did you comment before you made your first video that day?
Yeah. I mean, you mean in general? Yeah, I had been commenting for a while.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
like in that first video, what I said was basically like, I'm just doing a video so that there are like videos on my under my name if someone ever clicks on there,
yeah, exactly.
just to put a little bit of skin in the game. I mean, not much skin,
Well,
but a little bit.
that was his point though.
That was his point, right? Set up a shop,
Mm, in the bazaar, Chris, if you're
right?
watching, props. No. Uh-oh. I know this guy will come play.
Right. Man, it's gotta be so late.
Pony up, cowboy. I don't know what this cowboy thing is, but someone else was putting it up when they said hi to me the other day. It's like, is that about me or is that just a thing? I don't know because I'm from country. I'm a country boy. Teo Filet, Filet. I don't know how he says his name.
Hawaii.
Yeah, there's like this thing says this is telling me that there's 38 people watching and nobody wants to come play. Everyone's just lurking. Of course, people have their lives and they're probably just like hanging out in bed. Don't want to get on a don't want to get on a computer.
Uh,
Howdy, partner. Howdy, partner. How's that for you? I don't know. We have been talking about trust, the breakdown of trust. We even like threw in some shadow matriarchy talk. We talked about COVID. You hear that, YouTube? We talked about COVID.
yeah, watch out.
I think as long as we don't talk about, I probably actually, I don't even know. I don't know how my opinion landed. How
Well,
my,
everyone, it's okay. So I had this random thought when you just because I'm thinking of like the disclaimer that's gonna go under this video after you post it.
oh, is
Like,
it?
who knows, right? Like, who knows how the how they
Yeah.
works, how their crawlers work. But like, um, they had I was just, they're doing the rest of history.
Yes.
Oh, Paul mentions a lot. They're doing the Protestant Reformation. No, actually, they're not doing the Reformation. They're doing Luther. Well, they did Luther. I guess they're done with it. Um, but what the heck is the name of the ministry there? Speak Life, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you, I don't know the guy's name, but I guess they did some like video about it. And I'm just thinking like, is that a version of the disclaimer, right? Like, is that our own like, say like, to find out the truth about Lutheran Reformation, watch this video. Like
Do they
I
do
thought that
that?
was Glenn Scrivener. Yeah, I don't know. Actually, I didn't watch the video. I'm sorry. So I'm talking really out of something I don't know about. But I'm assuming they're kind of maybe like, because maybe like Tom Holland didn't really talk about Luther, and maybe he was not being super fair about some of the stuff, especially like sola scriptura. So maybe they talked about that. I don't know, Tayo, maybe if you watch it, you could talk about it. But I'm like, it's kind of like the disclaimer, you know? Get
Was
the
I
full
didn't so
facts.
there was a disclaimer on it? Is that what you're
No, there
saying?
wasn't. No, I'm just saying like that's kind of like a version of it, right? Like I don't know. It's like a little.
I
It's
don't know
less it's less institutional and it's a little more like
what is their podcast?
right. Well, I'm just okay. I'm not making my point. It was just kind of more of a fun little connection because like well, you know how YouTube puts the disclaimers at the bottom
Yes.
of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
video, right? Like, and they point you to some whatever website. Yeah, okay, I presume correctly. Good. So I'm thinking, so like the rest of his history does a podcast on Luther, right? Got Tom Holland, non-Christian adjacent historian, but he's not like a historian at Orlando,
University.
theological
He's
seminary
pop.
or
He's
right.
pop.
Like he's like okay, secular historian, right? Um, and then Speak Life does a video as like to talk about it, right? So it's almost like a get the full facts here kind of like there's a little bit of a connection there the way we so it's not like we all engage in this kind of stuff, right? To some extent, like we all engage in like a actually, kind of things. But,
So that's making me think I need to say for more information, you should check out the
just
World
go,
Health Organization.
yeah, go to WF or whatever it's called, CDC. Yeah, just go to those websites.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I know. I am gonna ask that we save like the Luther because you the Luther talk and Sola Fide and these things that you've been tossing into YouTube. Like I want to flesh those out
Yeah,
in the actual conversation. But
yeah, that's good.
did anyone else in the chat, anyone watching, did y'all watch Charlie? Have y'all gone over and watched Charlie's Little Corners video today about trust in the TLC? I didn't know if I don't know. Well, the not yet. I have to catch tomorrow. Yeah, I know it's getting late, people. What is this? All these old people on a Friday night saying that they got to get to bed. Only young people like me and Tony. How old are
Yeah,
you, Tony?
I don't know. I'm 33.
Oh, you are young, dude.
Yeah, I'm young. It doesn't feel like that.
No.
No. Every year, it's weird because now, yeah, there's no celebration on my birthday. Like, I just really don't feel like it's anything to celebrate
Do
every
you
year
do you
now.
live in the future? Are you kind of a person that lives in the future?
I think I used to be more than I am now. Yeah, now it's like I just better make it through the day.
Hmm.
I'm a lot more patient, I think, now in my life.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Well,
Yeah.
if no one else is gonna come in and play, I've got like 10 minutes, and I keep trying to put this out, but it's like everyone's already in their pajamas and taking their face off for the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of hard. Yeah, but that makes sense though. Tony at 33, like I would have been like, yeah, this wouldn't have been nothing. This wouldn't have been nothing. Young man's
Hey,
game.
I've never stayed up late, really. I like sleep.
So, well, all right. I'm gonna someone else pop in, talk to us about trust. Tell us a story about the dreaded COVID. It is interesting to be this far out from a lot of it, though. Maybe what's a trust issue, Hermit, about coming on?
Yeah.
What's the trust issue? Great homework. Are you mad that I gave you homework to watch a video? Not going on. Yep. People.
Well, at least you're typing. That's good.
Yeah, doing something.
That's what I do. Like I really like. This is probably the first live stream in a very long time because these things are going on when I'm working, and it would just look bad if I'm on YouTube while I'm working. It's just not, it's kind of frowned upon.
Kind of frowned upon. Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
I've done like a 5-minute thing, and always felt a little bit iffy about it. But yeah, that's the other piece of I work like 3 days a week, which is why I'm able to been doing what I've been doing. Like, I've found like as I've been trying to like make stuff, it's harder for me to like participate on this kind of thing because I'm trying to do this other thing. So that's why part of me is like, get on there and be authentic, Baxter. Be real. Be a real person. I don't know. And I'm just trying to also play with this stuff. Like it's a weird thing to put it up live. If doing something live does it, they all have different feelings attached to, like when you're preparing for something, like preparing to do a conversation with somebody, even if it's pre-recorded, it's like you really feel like the time, like the honoring of the time commitment.
Right.
And with this person giving you that, but then when like you just say, hey, come on, well, I mean, that's up to everybody's discretion.
Right.
And so it is they have different feelings attached to them. And
Yeah.
so I don't know.
I don't think I
Well,
could ever do this.
everybody, this is a preview. Tony and I are going to sit down for a full-on whatever conversation craft on yours truly next week, and we've kind of we've shied away from like what a lot of he's told some personal stuff on here, but we'll get into that. And we came into YouTube on the same day as like video participants, so we have a cool connection on that.
Same generation.
Yes, we
Same
are
TLC
class of 23 or 24, class of 24.
Yeah.
TLC helps my trust. Chat is the start for my participation. That is a great way to wrap
that's great.
this up. Because Tony, how long did you chat before? I mean, you said before you made that video.
Oh, I was around maybe for a year and a half.
So
yeah, but I even conversations I really haven't had that many. But like that's so right. Hermit of Enon, like for sure. Like just watching people have conversations. It's great. Like it really is a good education.
That and the first podcast that I hosted was with, kind of co-hosted it, but was with Pete from Strange Theology, and he's done a lot of covering of Joe Rogan, and one of the things that he said was, I always wished as I was watching this that I could have been participating in that conversation, but it takes time to figure out if that's can actually be real in your life. And the cool thing about what's happening now and what Paul's helped cultivate is that you can. So, all right, people. Tony will connect next week, and thanks everyone. 41 people right now at the top, hour and 36, and we're gonna shut it down. But dude, thanks for hanging out. Thanks everybody. Yeah. Comment people hanging out. I'm gonna shut this thing down in a proper Christian Baxter kind of way. All right. See y'all.
All right. See you, Christian.
Hi, this is Christian Baxter, and you're listening to Yours Truly, a place we go to think out loud.